Welcome to the Madison Miller Podcast. Today is Thursday, May 14th, 2020. Today I'm going to talk about the latest with the coronavirus in sports, go over last night's KBO games, and look ahead to tomorrow's games. Talk about some sports reruns that have been on TV and will re-air tonight as well. An update about a star player in Major League Baseball. Recapping last night's episode of The Masked Singer. And previewing tonight's episodes of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and Celebrity Watch Party, my 2014 NBA redraft, and my 2016 top 10 artists. So we'll get right into it with the virus. News out of MLB right now is that positive tests won't stop MLB. I don't think they'll stop NBA either. And the MLB's new proposal says the season wouldn't be shut down if a player tests positive for COVID-19. I think they're saying that because they're more prepared now than they were 2 months ago. So it makes sense. I think shutting everything down would be an overreaction to one positive test. I've heard the same stuff about the NBA and that the NBA wants more tests as well. So I think that is somewhat promising. Brian Cashman also spoke to the media today and said that he's optimistic that we will have a baseball season. The NFL sent a memo out to teams emphasizing that facilities stay closed with no set date for reopening, but more information should come this week. So that's not great for the NFL. But teams are still doing their virtual stuff, so at least they have that going for them. And I talked about yesterday how the Giants were exploring different options for training camp in case New Jersey isn't open in time. And then the Jets, I think, are in good shape, though, in terms of training camp because they're all the way out in Long Island. And the cases are surprisingly low in Long Island, and I think that is absolutely crazy that they're low there because obviously it's still New York City, although it's further out a little bit. So that's that. NBA draft decisions were postponed. The NCAA and the NBA are indefinitely postponing June 3rd's early entry withdrawal for draft prospects. That makes sense because they're postponing the draft and the lottery and the combine. So it just makes sense to postpone draft decisions as well. Von Miller spoke about his COVID-19 experience. He said that he had frightening symptoms from the coronavirus and that the first 4 to 5 days that he was nervous. And I'm just glad that he's doing better now, and he's somebody that is obviously a huge star in the NFL, pass rusher for the Broncos, and probably the biggest name NFL player to get tested positive for the virus. Obviously, Sean Payton tested positive, but he's a head coach. But the biggest star player in the NFL to get tested positive for the virus in the NFL was obviously Von Miller, and I'm just glad that he is doing okay. And then they extended the virtual offseason through the end of May, and it initially went through until May 15th. The NBA stars want to come back, and that is awesome. I talked about that on yesterday's show, how LeBron James and all the stars were on a conference call. Oh, I should say the majority of the stars. James Harden and Paul George were not on the call, but they had teammates that were, and they all pretty much want to come back. And that tells me that the NBA is for certain coming back, especially if LeBron wants to come back, because I always said that LeBron has a saying power in sports, not just the NBA. I think he's the biggest voice in terms of star players in all of sports, more so than Tom Brady. So I do think the NBA is for certain to come back. I think it's literally 99.9% chance that the National Basketball Association comes back. And I already talked about yesterday how Gary Bettman's confident that the NHL will return. I think it will too. And tonight I'm actually going to have James Celestin on my show, and we're going to talk about which sport we think will come back first. And we'll talk about a lot of other stuff when I have him on later tonight. Now I'm going to talk about today's KBO games and look ahead to tomorrow's games. I did terrible with my picks. I went 1-4 after nailing a moneyline parlay yesterday. So Hanwha defeated Kia 4-1. Doosan defeated Lotte 7-4. Samsung defeated Kawum 8-5. NC defeated KT 1-0. And LG defeated SK 3-2. So a lot of unders hit yesterday, with the exception of the Doosan Lotte game and the Samsung Kawum game. And now NC stands alone with the best record so far, the NC Dinos. The Lotte Giants are 6-2. Kawum and Doosan. Kawum 6-3. Doosan and LG are 5-3. Samsung and Kia are 4-5. Hanwha 3-6, and SK and KT are the two worst teams at 1-7. Obviously, the two worst teams, I mean, by record, and arguably talent as well. And now I'm going to look ahead to the matchups tonight, or I should say tomorrow morning for the KBO, and I'll make my picks for the matchups as well. So, I don't even see them up here yet in terms of the odds and stuff. I can't find them. Let's see. But if not, I'll just pick the game straight up without the odds, and then I'll just tweet out the picks for the odds tonight or so. So you have Doosan against Kia, NC against SK, Samsung against KT, Kawum against LG, and Lotte against Hanwha. I love the NC Dinos. I love Lotte. I feel like after their losses, they've bounced back and won. So I'm going to go with Lotte. I'll go with Samsung. Doosan Kia is interesting. I am going to go... Why not go with an upset? I'm going to take Kia. And then Kawum and LG, I'm going to go with LG on their home turf. So I'm going to take straight up Kia, NC, Samsung, LG, and Lotte in terms of straight up picks for KBO tomorrow morning. Now I'm going to talk about the reruns that have been on TV yesterday and ones that will be on TV tonight. 2015 NBA Finals Game 6, obviously that was where Steph Curry and the Warriors won their first championship, Steve Kerr's first year. They had the best record in the NBA that year. There's a lot of people that think that the Cavaliers would have won if Kyrie Irving not gotten injured. I don't know if that's really the case. And they did lose Kevin Love too, and LeBron James single-handedly carried them to 6 games, and you could argue should have been the Finals MVP in defeat. That was probably the best performance I've seen a superstar player perform in defeat of an NBA Finals. So I would have been in favor of LeBron James being the Finals MVP on a losing team. Because let's face it, Andre Iguodala did not deserve it. He just had a good Game 6, and that's why he won. And how baseball, hockey, and the NBA judge their respective MVPs, well, the MVP in the playoffs is really the case for hockey with the Conn Smythe Trophy. It's the playoffs MVP, but the World Series MVP and the Finals MVP are what baseball and basketball respectively do. My criteria does really include somebody has to win from the winning team. But LeBron James was the exception to the rule because he's LeBron James and he single-handedly carried a team without its second and third best player to Game 6 against one of the best teams in NBA history, or a team that wound up being one of the best in NBA history in the Golden State Warriors. As that next year they went 73-9, although they lost the finals to the Cavs, and then they added Kevin Durant. So I should really say one of the best era teams of all time in the Warriors, and he didn't have Kyrie or Kevin Love in that series. So that's like the one exception I would have said, okay, I wouldn't mind the losing series player winning the finals MVP. And like I said, it was LeBron James. If anybody won an MVP in a losing effort, it's LeBron James. Or if anybody should have. 2017 NBA Finals Game 3. Obviously, that was the game where Kevin Durant helped lead the Warriors to a victory. The Cavaliers had the lead a lot in that game, and then he had some big three-pointers down the stretch that helped the Warriors go up 3-0 in that series, and the Cavaliers wound up winning Game 4 in a blowout fashion. Didn't matter because Golden State closed them out in Game 5 that year. So they're just showing some love for Kevin Durant in what was a classic of an NBA Finals game. College football re-airing tonight, 2002, Florida State at Miami. Number 1 Miami rallied from a 13-point deficit to escape with a 28-27 victory over their in-state rivals. You have MSG Networks re-airing here locally in the New York tri-state area, Carmelo Anthony's Knicks debut, where he helped lead the Knicks to a victory over the Milwaukee Bucks. And they also re-aired John Tavares' first NHL goal game for the Islanders back in 2008. And tonight MSG Networks is re-airing where Anders Lee scored his first NHL goal. Obviously, he's the captain of the New York Islanders. 2004 Packers at Eagles on Fox Sports 1. The infamous 4th and 26 play during the fourth quarter en route to the Eagles getting to the NFC title game. Obviously, it was Brett Favre against Donovan McNabb, so it was a sexy quarterback matchup there. MLB Networks re-airing 2015 NLDS Cardinals-Cubs. That was a game where the Cubs won to move on to the NLCS, and then they were ultimately swept by the New York Mets, led by their great pitching staff and the red-hot bat of Daniel Murphy. You also have on NBCSN 2010 Flyers-Bruins. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's when Philadelphia came back from 3-0 down in the semifinals back in 2010 to defeat the Bruins. So that's obviously a huge deal in Flyers history because that helped lead them to the Stanley Cup final, and that was one of the bad series losses of recent sort of years in the NHL. I should say over the last decade or so for Boston, although they rebounded and won the Stanley Cup the very next year, and that is in their defense. NHL Network, Capitals at the Penguins. Penguins won Game 6 to move on to the Eastern Conference Finals en route to their Stanley Cup victory over the San Jose Sharks. And then that same series, Game 5, between those two teams, and then Game 4. So a lot of Pittsburgh-Washington games, Crosby versus Ovechkin. So they're giving that player rivalry a lot of love for sure. And over the weekend there's going to be more games that will be re-aired on the bigger networks like ABC, CBS, Fox, and NBC. And by the way, another all-time game was a regular season game between the Cubs and the Cardinals, where the Cardinals came back and defeated the Cubs by a score 9-8 in the regular season, September 21st of 2019. That was the collapse of the Cubs, and that really helped the Cardinals win the NL Central last season as well. Brian Cashman, as I said, spoke to the media today, and he also spoke about his star player, Aaron Judge, who is rehabbing from a fractured rib, and he came out and said that he's doubtful for this opening day. I've killed the Yankees medical staff on this show plenty of times, and they deserve it too. But I think what the Yankees are also not realizing is that a lot of their players are very fragile and injury prone, such as Judge and Giancarlo Stanton. And I don't want to go on a rant about this, and Masahiro Tanaka with the elbow. We can go into all of the important players on the Yankees and issues they have. Luis Severino out for Tommy John surgery, but they didn't technically make the ALCS without him last year. Or not really without him, but they made the playoffs, won the division without Luis Severino last year. And for most of the year, they won the AL East without Aaron Judge last year. Nobody talks about that. I mean, it would be a big loss for the Yankees, but it's not as big as a loss as people think. But with the shortened season, it kind of is a big loss. If he's out for at least the first month of the new season, and say he comes back in August. And, well, he did say he'd come back in summertime, so maybe he will be back in the middle of July. But I do think they can survive without him. They have the depth to do it. There's a lot of guys I like a part of their team from depth purposes, like Mike Tauchman, who I thought showed a lot of promise last year. Clint Frazier is somebody that has not lived up to expectations since being traded to the Yankees, but this is his turn to shine. If he doesn't show anything while Aaron Judge is out, then he's a bust. I pretty much have called him a bust already because he's not what the Yankees thought he was going to be. And I define bust in terms of if you were highly regarded and compared to all-time great players and projected to be so special and you never were, then you're a bust or a failure per se. And like bust is a little strong, but failure is another type of word. Like Greg Bird was obviously a failed Yankees prospect. I mean, you can't hit on every prospect, obviously, and a lot of these prospects that people tend to think that they're going to be great don't not always turn out to be great. But yeah, this is Clint Frazier's time to shine if Aaron Judge is going to miss some time for the Yankees. We'll talk about this, obviously, with James tonight on the show when I have him on later. But yeah, this is a bigger loss than it would have been if we had the full season because the season's obviously shorter. But this puts pressure on guys like Giancarlo Stanton and Clint Frazier and Aaron Hicks, who's going to be back from Tommy John surgery, and Brett Gardner, and a lot of these guys to step up. And they have. They've overcome adversity, I think, as well as any team that is expected to win. Even though they haven't won with this core, they've really have overcome so much over these past couple years. So, well, I do think it's a bigger loss than it would have been had we had the whole season. But at the same time, I think that if any team is capable of overcoming injuries, it's the Yankees. And they've done it time in and time again, year after year. So I think that they'll be fine with or without Aaron Judge. And Aaron Judge should be back in the summer. So maybe he'll just miss the first 2 weeks, and who knows, maybe he'll miss the first month. So I think the Yankees are the team that, like I said, they benefited the most from the coronavirus shutdown because to get most of their guys healthy. Although Aaron Judge may miss time, but not as much time as he would have missed if there was a full season. All right, now I'm going to recap last night's episode of The Masked Singer. Good show. Your finalists were unveiled. The guest panelist was Jay Farrow, and they opened the show with a group performance of Simply the Best. And there was bonus clues given out by each of the 4 contestants. Night Angels was a football, Rhino was globes, Frog was a hat, and the Turtle was a photo album. Night Angel went first, and her clue package was about suffering a tragic loss and having a guardian angel. There was a football and the soccer ball in the clue package. And then she performed How to Love by Lil Wayne. And in her normal voice, she said, "This is for you, robot." Obviously referring to Lil Wayne. The fact that they let her use her real voice gave it away for me, as well as the clues hinting toward losing somebody close. I think it's Candy Burris. I was saying Kelly Rowland for the longest time because of hints related to Destiny's Child. But hearing her voice and her talking about a loss that she suffered, it's Candy Burris. And Jenny McCarthy thinks so too. Jay Farrow thought it was Dawn Robinson, which isn't a terrible guess. And Ken Jeong had a terrible guess of Ciara. Ciara wouldn't have been the worst guess had she not been pregnant at the time of the taping. She was pregnant at the time of the taping, and if she wasn't pregnant, then that wouldn't have been the worst guess in the world, but it was a bad guess because Ciara was pregnant at the time of the tapings. Turtle. He talks about looking up to Robin Thicke in his clue package, and there was like a highway and a trailer. And a clue that absolutely stood out to me was there was a sign, like a street sign, and it said back street, Backstreet Boys. And Turtle sang Jealous by Nick Jonas. I think it's AJ McLean. I feel better about it than I did a week ago. Obviously, the Backstreet sign made it way too obvious. Although there was the clue of NTKOB and the arrow about a month ago. And then now there's the Backstreet sign too. But maybe it is Jesse McCartney. And Jesse McCartney did calibrations with those 3 bands. But I still am rolling with AJ McLean just from the vocals and from his personality under the mask. And Ken Jeong went with Kevin Richardson of the Backstreet Boys. Nicole Scherzinger went with Nick Carter of the Backstreet Boys. And Robin Thicke went with former American Idol contestant Justin Guarini, which I thought was an odd guess. Rhino went next. He was talking about hiding shame. There's trees. There was a trombone. And then he said at the end of the clue package that he had a big announcement that he was going to make after he was unmasked. And there was also Little Rhinos, which was a big hint towards the announcement. He performed Humble and Kind by Tim McGraw. I stuck with my guess of Tim Tebow. And something that I forgot to mention earlier is that the bonus clue of the episode was a closer look where each contestant went up to the judges' table and had a closer look of something. And Night Angels was a moon on a pin. Turtles was a diamond ring on his finger. And Rhinos was a baby rhino, which was obviously the hint towards his big announcement. Ken Jeong went with Barry Zito. Nicole Scherzinger stuck with Jason Aldean. And Jay Farrow went with Blake Shelton. The Frog went last. There was a lot of basketball clues again. A dance floor, 1,000, like very electric vibes. He performed Hip Hop Hooray by Naughty Be Nature. I'm sticking with the Bow Wow guess. The closer look pin. He had a pin that said Mom. Robin pointed out that Mom upside down is wow. Bow Wow. That's too obvious. Come on. And obviously Robin went with Bow Wow, and so did Jay Farrow, as well as Omarion. Jenny guessed Chance the Rapper, and Ken Jeong went with Lil Fizz. And they had the final vote. And who went home? The Rhino. I stuck with my original guess of Tim Tebow. Robin went with Trace Atkins. Ken Jeong and Jenny McCarthy went with Barry Zito. Nicole Scherzinger went with Jason Aldean. Jay Farrell went with Blake Shelton. And who was it? Former San Francisco Giants and Oakland Athletics pitcher and current singer and reality star, Barry Zito. So Ken Jeong and Jenny McCarthy were correct. And a lot of people were saying that Ken Jeong doesn't deserve credit because he stole the guess from Jenny. Well, you know what? I'm going to give Ken Jeong credit. Him and Jenny guessed Barry Zito for two entirely different reasons. Jenny went with Barry Zito due to his pitching and MLB career-related clues. And Ken went with Barry Zito due to his hint on the reality TV shows and his hints towards music. So it's two different reasons why they each went with Barry Zito. So that's in defense of Ken Jeong. I give him credit and not no credit because he stole Jenny McCarthy's guess. It's because of they had the same guess but for different reasons, and that's why I'm giving Ken Jeong credit for getting Rhino correct. Then the after show happens. Wayne Brady, who was Fox last year, and Adrian Bailon, who was the Flamingo last year, joined Nick and Robin on the show. Also, Barry Zito was on the show as well, talking about his experience on the show, giving away some of the clues that he had in the clue package. He also performed at the end with Gavin DeGraw, which was neat. So the after show won't happen after the finale, unfortunately, because the premiere of Tag, which is hosted by the three Watt brothers, will premiere after the Masked Singer finale on Wednesday night at 9 o'clock on Fox. And obviously the Watt brothers were also on the after show as well, so it was pretty neat to say JJ and TJ and Derek Watt all on the show. That's something else I want to talk about with James tonight, JJ Watt's new show, and see if he'll watch it. Because I think it kind of fits JJ Watt and his personality to do a game show and be a host like that. So I'm happy for JJ Watt that he found something else outside of football to do, although he's still a great football player today. Granted, he's been injury prone the last couple years, but when he's healthy, he's still one of the better players in the NFL that people tend to forget about. So I think it's neat that that JJ, TJ, and Derek Watt get the spotlight a little bit during these trying times. And the other perception now about JJ Watt, which I don't think is fair, is that people think that TJ Watt is a better player than JJ Watt. I think that's a little premature. I mean, people are saying that now because JJ hasn't been healthy. But TJ is a star, and he's also a Defensive Player of the Year candidate and really has changed the Steelers' defense with his presence. So I'm not ready to say that he's better than peak JJ yet, but he's closing the gap. But JJ at his peak was the very best defensive player in the NFL. And obviously, like I said, JJ's had some injuries over the last couple of seasons, and he's somebody that is a well-known name around the NFL, and I think very outspoken and has a great personality too. So I'm looking forward to that game show, and it was neat that Nick had the three brothers on the Masked Singer after show last night. So now I want to talk about tonight's episode of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. It should be interesting. It's obviously on at the same time as Watch Party. I believe Catherine O'Hara, her continuation of her stint will go first. And then Dr. Phil will go next. So somebody's going far, and I said it last week. when I noticed that it was just Catherine O'Hara and Hannibal Buress, that somebody was going far. And it turned out that Hannibal went pretty far, as he got the $125,000 question wrong. And then Catherine O'Hara made it up to 1,000 as time expired. So maybe she goes far, or maybe she makes it up to the 32 grand, or walks away, or gets one wrong, and then Dr. Phil goes up to that point and runs out of time. But you never know. Maybe one of them goes far. But normally, when there's two contestants, that tells me that somebody is going far in the show. So should be a very fun show tonight on ABC. And there's only a couple more weeks left of Millionaire, if I'm not mistaken. So that's another show that we're going to probably stop talking about for a while till it comes back. And then maybe we'll get more into the Watt Brothers show. A Celebrity Watch Party is going to be on for a couple more weeks. One more episode of Idol. One more weekend or doubleheader of The Last Dance. So it's unfortunate. And obviously one more Masked Singer. So we have to find other things to follow on the podcast. And Celebrity Watch Party, fun show. They just show celebrities watching these shows and their reactions. It's kind of fun to watch. You have Tyra Banks, Joe Buck, Raven Simone, Master P, the Osbournes. So it's the same cast. And they watch The Masked Singer, they watch The Last Dance, maybe American Idol's on this week, they watch a lot of the news. So, should be a fun show. And something that I was disappointed in last week is that when they showed the Masked Singer, they didn't show the reactions of the people from Celebrity Watch Party for the Take It Off segment. And they just showed their reactions to the performances and throwing out random guesses instead of seeing their reactions to the unmaskings. Hopefully we see that tonight. And then it's going to be fun to see the reactions of The Last Dance from this past week, and maybe reactions to the double nickel, reactions to Jordan playing baseball. I want to see reactions again to the news reports and whatnot, and people's takes on that. And this show, another takeaway I had, it's like some of these people are showing their true colors of what political party they're rooting for with some of these people. I really don't want to get into that, but that was obviously one of my takeaways from the show. As it just gotten started. Now I'm going to do my 2014 NBA redraft. This draft, I think, turned out to be one of the more overrated drafts over the past 10 years. This was hyped up to be the best draft since the Carmelo Anthony, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh draft. But it's not even close. There's 2 All-Stars from this draft. And without further ado, here we go. Number 1, Cleveland Cavaliers, Joel Embiid, no doubt about it. Embiid's the best player from this draft. As soon as he's been playing full seasons with the Sixers have been good and have been in the playoffs with Embiid. And who knows, maybe if Embiid wasn't so injury prone early on in his career and still today, maybe the 76ers would have been on a nice little longer playoff streak than they currently are on. But it's a huge what if had Embiid played all those since 2014, because he obviously would have been the Rookie of the Year over Andrew Wiggins, because he would have changed the Sixers, and being in a big market certainly helps Embiid. But him on the Cavs would have been interesting. Then Kevin Love's probably not there. So their core would have been LeBron, Kyrie, and Embiid. And who knows, maybe LeBron's still in Cleveland if Embiid was the pick instead of Wiggins, because obviously Kevin Love wouldn't be in Cleveland. He probably would have gotten traded to another team, maybe the Warriors, and that probably changes their outlook because, God, had they did that Love for Klay Thompson, Harrison Barnes, Minnesota probably wins that trade, and the Warriors don't have their dynasty. So it's a lot of what ifs in NBA history for that. And obviously they took Andrew Wiggins, who they flipped for Kevin Love, and then they won a championship in 2016 and made 4 consecutive finals, including that 16 championship. Milwaukee Bucks at number 2 go with Nikola Jokic, the second best player from this draft, in my opinion. There's people who are going to say that Jokic is better than Embiid because Jokic stays healthier and Embiid does not. But my issue with Jokic is that he doesn't play any defense. He's not a good defensive player. Embiid is. That's why I took Embiid, despite health issues, over Nikola Jokic in this redraft. If Nikola Jokic was on the Bucks, then Giannis is a lock to resign there next summer. So a lot of history altering for the Bucks as well. Or else there could have been Jokic and Giannis with Chris Middleton instead of Giannis and Middleton. And then they took Jabari Parker. The 76ers at number 3. This is a little controversial because this player hasn't been healthy in a while, but his upside, in my opinion, is just tremendous. And I think this certain team's going to regret trading this player. Clint Capella. Clint Capella is a double-double machine. Yeah, he's flawed a little bit, but he's very raw, but at the same time, he's athletic. He can protect the rim. And he's a nice little building block. And the Rockets traded him away for a role player in Covington. So I don't love Capella's fit in Atlanta with John Collins, unless they trade John Collins, which people have thrown out there, but they shouldn't trade John Collins. If I'm the Hawks, I'd trade away Clint Capella again and see if you can get something else and play John Collins at center. But who knows? So maybe they are going to try the duet up front of Collins and Capella. And Capella on the Sixers instead of Embiid would have been interesting. They're both obviously big men that can protect the rim, but Embiid's obviously a much, 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 much better offensive player than Capella. And instead, the Sixers, like I said, went with Embiid. The Orlando Magic at 4 go with Aaron Gordon, so no do-over here as the Magic take their guy. He's been the subject of trade rumors over the last couple of years. He's just an odd fit in Orlando. And I'm not suggesting that was a bad pick by them. It was a good pick, but they picked Jonathan Isaac too. And Isaac is probably a better fit for what they want to accomplish. And I think Aaron Gordon can land them that shooter that they desperately need. And imagine, I'm just going to throw this out there. Aaron Gordon for Buddy Hield with a couple other random little contracts as well. I think that's a win-win for both of those teams because then you put Aaron Gordon next to Marvin Bagley because the Kings lack a power forward, but then again, that's wonky with Harrison Barnes there. And then you re-sign Bogdanovich, and you have Bogdanovich and De'Aaron Fox, and then on the other side, you have Buddy Hield, Markelle Fultz, Nikola Vucevic, and Jonathan Isaac as your core. And that's really promising for Orlando. So if I'm Orlando, I'd call Sacramento and see what it takes to do that deal because that's a win-win for both those sides, and especially if the Kings can get rid of Harrison Barnes too, because Barnes and Gordon, I just don't like that fit together. I mean, take Barnes out of it and get a better small forward or a better wing type of small forward rather than a big guy type of stretch four. Then you're looking at something special in Sacramento. the Utah Jazz at number 5 go with Bogdan Bogdanovic. And that is obviously ironic because his brother plays for the Jazz. And Bogdan is somebody who I just talked about for Sacramento and how they signed him and it kind of ruined Buddy Hield a little bit. Although Buddy Hield was pretty good off the bench for Sacramento, but Buddy Hield deserves to start. Buddy Hield is, if he gets traded to the Eastern Conference, I think he could be an all-star. I really do. I love Buddy Hield. I loved him at Oklahoma. And I think he's going to be an absolute star two-guard in the NBA in the future. So, although Bogdan Bogdanovic is very, very good, and he's probably a better fit for Sacramento than Buddy is. But Bogdan on Utah, could you imagine Gobert with Donovan Mitchell and Bogdan Bogdanovic in the backcourt? I know they have the other Bogdanovic there, but imagine Bogdan there instead of Bojan. And instead, Utah went with Dante Exum. The Boston Celtics at number 6 go with Julius Randle. He would have been a very good fit there. Yes, he's flawed in terms of that he's a bad defensive player, but he's a very good offensive player, double-double machine, had a career year at the Knicks this year. Granted, the Knicks are terrible, but that was arguably his best season of his career, and although he was very good on the Pelicans too, playing with Anthony Davis. But maybe Randall's more equipped to succeed as a power forward rather than a center, than being played at center. So maybe he could be their power forward with, God, him and Enes Kanter would have been a mitigated disaster defensively. Maybe Theis, who's the opposite of Kanter, who is a bad offensive player but a very good defensive player. So maybe him and Daniel Theis would have been a good fit in their front court with Brown, Tatum, and Kemba Walker. And then there's questions about Gordon Hayward. Maybe you trade Gordon Hayward or don't sign him because this is obviously a 2014 redraft. So, some what-ifs there. And instead the Celtics went with Marcus Smart, which wasn't a disastrous pick, but I think that they thought he was going to be better than what he is. But what he is an energy guy off the bench that's a very, very good defensive player and could occasionally start. So it's not the worst pick in the world, but he probably isn't what the Celtics realistically thought of him at the time. The Lakers at number 7 go with Spencer Dinwiddie. Spencer Dinwiddie is somebody that had a breakout year a couple years ago on the Nets and then a couple years ago helped them make the playoffs along with D'Angelo Russell. He would have been a fine fit on the Lakers today and would have been a great fit on the Lakers before LeBron. Imagine, like right now, him at point with LeBron, Anthony Davis, Kuzma at the 3, and you play small ball, and then have Danny Green at the 2-guard position. Like, that's lethal in terms of offense. And instead the Lakers went with Julius Randle. The Kings at number 8 go with Joe Harris, another Brooklyn Nets player. It's amazing that Joe Harris, Julius Randle, and Spencer Dinwiddie are all lottery picks. I mean, it just says how bad this draft was in terms of high-end talent. I mean, these are solid starting players on good teams, but obviously not all-stars. Obviously, Embiid and Jokic were really all-stars from this class, but I think Capella has a chance, and Aaron Gordon still has a chance, and that's it to make an all-star team. And Randall just didn't make the all-star team this past year because the Knicks were terrible. Had the Knicks been like some surprise contender, maybe he would have made it. Dinwiddie just didn't make it because he's on the Brooklyn Nets and isn't even their best player. But Joe Harris, back to this redraft, someone who really came into his own under Kenny Atkinson in Brooklyn, good three-point shooter. He would have been fun on Sacramento, whether it's in a bench role or a starting role. Instead, they went with Nick Stauskas. The Hornets at 9 go with Zach LaVine, someone who really has come into his own offensively since being on the Chicago Bulls. He probably would have been in that Devontae Graham role, although he's probably worse than Devontae Graham on the Hornets right now. And instead, they went with Noah Vonleh. The Magic at 10 go with Andrew Wiggins, so Andrew Wiggins falls all the way to number 10. You could argue Wiggins should go higher or lower, but this just says how bad this draft was. I think Wiggins is grossly overrated and not the guy who was supposed to be, and certainly not worth that contract. Andrew Wiggins on Orlando right now actually wouldn't be the worst situation for him. He'd actually would be a nice fit in Orlando. And maybe they deal Aaron Gordon to Golden State for Wiggins. Like that would be a nice trade. If like I said, the proposed one for Buddy Hield doesn't work out, then maybe Golden State gets Aaron Gordon and Orlando gets Wiggins, and more stuff gets thrown to Golden State. So that would have been a not so bad trade if that trade ever happened, because like I said, Wiggins would fit nicely in Orlando as like the wing player, and then with Fultz, with Isaacs and Vucevic, like that's not bad. So I just don't think Aaron Gordon's right fit in Orlando, and I said that. And it's funny that I'm using Orlando a lot in these examples because the Magic have 2 lottery picks in this draft that I'm redrafting. So that's why Orlando is a hot topic in this segment. And instead, obviously, Orlando went with Elfrid Payton. Number 11, the Chicago Bulls, Gary Harris. Gary Harris fell off the face of the earth a little bit. He was perceived as one of the best shooting guards in the NBA coming into this past season. He's really fallen off a cliff. I don't know what the heck happened to Gary Harris. But I think when we have a new season after this season that's been on pause is done, I think he's certainly a bounce-back candidate on the Nuggets, or who knows, maybe another team next year. And he would have been a nice building block for Chicago. And obviously Chicago is a win-now team, but they traded up in this draft to get a shooter in McDermott. And that's who obviously they picked in that spot. The Philadelphia 76ers were 12. Redrafting, I have them going with Jusuf Nurkic. I know it's weird having them take 2 big men, but maybe they trade Nurkic or trade Capella in the Jimmy Butler deal, or that wouldn't have worked out because Towns is there. Maybe they do some other interesting trade ideas. Maybe they are the team instead of the Lakers that trade for Anthony Davis, and they could package one of those big men to New Orleans. Maybe they would have done Clint Capella, and then maybe have Anthony Davis play at power forward, where he likes to play better, although I think he's awesome playing at center as well. Nobody talks about how good he is at center as well as he is at power forward. And instead they took Dario Saric. 13, the Timberwolves go with TJ Warren. Very above average role player for the Indiana Pacers. Was a very good, sneaky good role player for the Suns, who they idiotically traded away for nothing. Like, I thought that was a mega steal trade for Indiana. And he helped Indiana this year. Combo forward, can shoot the 3-ball, good defender too. And instead the Timberwolves took Zach LaVine, and then TJ Warren on Minnesota with Townsend probably would have, let's say Wiggins doesn't go there in the redraft, and they probably still trade Kevin Love. So him and Karl Anthony Towns would have been interesting for sure. The Phoenix Suns at 14 went with Marcus Smart in the redraft, or go with Marcus Smart. And Marcus Smart falls from 6 to 14. Smart's not a bad player. He's just a good role player on the Celtics. 3-and-D guy. Talked about him a little bit before. certainly would have helped Phoenix and certainly would have been a nice point guard to have alongside Devin Booker. And instead they go with TJ Warren, who I just talked about. The Hawks at 15 go with Elfrid Payton in the redraft. Elfrid Payton has emerged over the last couple of years as a very good statistical point guard, can rebound, can pass. Not really that good of a shooter, but he certainly is somebody that is good at getting in the paint. He's somebody that I thought the Knicks should have traded at the deadline this past year. But there are no takers. I'm surprised, and he's good. Elfrid Payton's not bad at all. He just isn't really a long-term solution like Orlando thought he was when taking him at number 10. And instead the Hawks went with Adrian Payne. Yikes. The Nuggets at 16 go with Jeremy Grant. How ironic, because Grant is now a member of the Nuggets. Jeremy was somebody that came into his own with Oklahoma City, and then they trade him to Denver and get a first out of it, and Jeremy Grant is a big help for the Nuggets in both the starting role and the bench role. And instead the Nuggets went with Yusuf Nurkic. The Celtics at 17 go with Tyler Johnson. Tyler Johnson's currently a free agent right now. That guy is a good heat check guy, and he really helped the Miami Heat over the past couple of years before they dealt him to the Suns, and he's a free agent. Like, why didn't anybody sign him? That guy isn't bad. He's a heat check guy off the bench. Worst case scenario. And instead the Celtics go with James Young. Yikes. The Suns at 18 go with Jordan Clarkson. So another guard for them. This is the opposite of Elfrid Payton. Just a guy that could flat out shoot. Heat check guy. Was a good heat check guy for the Lakers and for the Cavaliers. And now he's on Utah and helped Utah too. And he would have helped Phoenix off the bench as a sixth man. Instead, they went with Tyler Ennis. At number 19 is the Denver Nuggets. They go with Rodney Hood. Rodney Hood has had some moments. He's had some big playoff games for the Cavs and for the Blazers and for some other teams as well. He just probably isn't what the Jazz thought he was going to be when they drafted him. And he certainly would have been a very good bench player for the Denver Nuggets, as they would have been loaded, although they don't have Jokic in this redraft. Maybe they still acquire Mason Plumlee or another random center and still have some success, but not as much success because obviously it's not Jokic. And instead the Nuggets took Gary Harris, which wasn't bad. The Raptors at 20 go with Dario Saric, so Saric falls to 20 from the lottery. He's fallen off a little bit since he was traded. He's been traded multiple times. He's traded in the package that the Timberwolves sent to the Suns to move up to draft Jared Culver. He obviously was in the deal to Minnesota in the Jimmy Butler deal as well. So he's been traded a couple times, and people thought that this guy was going to be a star, and he's not. And he probably would have helped Toronto off the bench. And instead, Toronto went with Bruno Caboclo. 21, the Oklahoma City Thunder, Dwight Powell. Underrated reserve big man for the Dallas Mavericks. He got hurt this year, which was unfortunate. He really helped them a lot. And he would have helped the Thunder off the bench. Instead, they go with Mitch McGary, who did show promise a little bit. The Grizzlies at 22 go with Doug McDermott. So Doug McDermott falls 10 spots to the Grizzlies. That gives them a much-needed shooter off the bench. Instead, Memphis went with Jordan Adams. 23, the Jazz, Shabazz Napier. Heat check guy, can occasionally start. Certainly would have been a good bench guy to have for Utah. Instead, they went with Rodney Hood, which wasn't bad. I thought Rodney Hood was a lottery pick. Maybe because the Jazz were so high on him. That's probably what made me think of that. The Heat at 24 go with Maxi Kleber, another big guy for the Mavericks. That a combo big forward for them that helped them this past season. He certainly would have helped Miami too, and instead Miami went with Shabazz Napier. Not bad. The Rockets at 25 go with Torrey Craig, role player from the Nuggets. Would have helped the Rockets off the bench too. Instead they go with Clint Capella. 26, the Hornets go with Kyle Anderson. Somebody that's bounced around a little bit, was drafted by the Spurs. Now he's on Memphis as a reserve. Certainly would have helped Charlotte. Maybe he would have started in Charlotte. Who knows? And instead they went with PJ Hairston. The Suns at 27 go with Langston Galloway. Someone that was undrafted, was on the Knicks for a while. Then he went to the Pistons. Then he was on the Pelicans, or it was Pelicans and Pistons. But he's a good three-point shooter. Has a lot of energy. Kind of reminds me of Nate Robinson a little bit. And instead the Suns went with Bogdan Bogdanovic. And it's crazy that the Suns had him. And I talked about Bogdan a little bit. It's crazy that the Suns had him and had his rights. But he wound up going to Sacramento, and I guess he didn't want to play in Phoenix. So that's a whiff for the Suns, because Bogdan would have helped them. And I had Bogdan obviously going higher in this redraft. I had him going next. Clippers at 28 go with Dante Exum, just a role player. Not what, obviously, so Exum would have, I guess, helped the Clippers. Maybe he would have been like a 10th or 12th man or whatever. Instead, they go with C.J. Wilcox, which that's what he was on the Clippers briefly. Thunder at 29 goes Cristiano Feliciano, backup big man for the Bulls. Showed flashes here and there. Instead, the Thunder went with Josh Huertas. And 30, the Spurs go with Noah Vonleh. Vonleh, somebody that also didn't live up to the draft hype. People thought he was going to possibly be a franchise changer, but nope. He's bounced around the league a little bit. Not a good defensive player. Can shoot, though, but and can get in the paint a little bit, but not a really strong defender. So that's it. My redraft of 2014. And obviously I did a lot of time on that. And now quickly I'm going to do my top 10 artists of 2016. Honorable mentions: Future, Justin Bieber, Selena Gomez, 21 Pilots, Lady Gaga, Shawn Mendes, Taylor Swift, Meghan Trainor. Alright, 10th place I have Kanye West. He had a good year that year. Had some good songs, obviously, as well as an album that came out, The Life of Pablo. The 3 singles off the album were Famous, Father, Stretch My Hands, and Fade. 9th place, Luke Bryan. Obviously, he was coming into his own. His Kill the Lights album came out in 2015. We had 3 singles off that album in 2016. Huntin', Fishin', and Lovin' Every Day, Move, and Fast. 8th place, Adele. She came out with her album 25. And 3 singles from the calendar year 2016 were off that album from 2015. When We Were Young, Send My Love to Your New Lover. And Water Under the Bridge. 7th place, The Weeknd. Very, very popular rapper. He had 2 albums come out back-to-back years: Beauty, Behind the Madness, and Starboy in 2015 and 16 respectively. Starboy had 3 singles come out in 2016. Starboy, I Feel It Coming, and Party Monster. 6th place, Ariana Grande. Her album of Dangerous Woman came out in 2016, including her singles Dangerous Woman, Into You, and Side to Side. 5th place, Coldplay. Coldplay had a great year in 2016. Obviously, they performed in the Super Bowl halftime show that year and had 4 singles off their album, A Head Full of Dreams, that came out the previous year, come out in the calendar year of 2016. Hymn for the Weekend, Up and Up, A Head Full of Dreams, and Everglow. 4th place, Rihanna. Rihanna had a big 2016. Her Anti album came out. That was the last album she's had, so she's due for a bit of a comeback here. The singles off the album, Work, Needed Me, Kiss It Better, and Love on the Brain, all came out in 2016. 3rd place, Drake. Drake yet again had a great year in 2016. Views came out that year. 4 singles off that album in that year. One Dance, Pop Style, Controlla, and Too Good. 2nd place, Beyonce. Beyonce had a fantastic 2016 when her 6th album of Lemonade came out. 5 singles, all from the calendar year 2016 off that album. Formation, Sorry, Hold Up, Freedom, and All Night. And the top artists of 2016 is actually a band, Chainsmokers. They had their big EP that came out of Collage with 5 singles on it. Don't Let Me Down, Inside Out, Closer, All We Know, and Setting Fires. All from the 2016 EP Collage, and all came out in 2016 as radio singles as well. So that's it for today. I'll be back later talking to my buddy James Celestin about when sports are going to return and any other topics I'd like to discuss. Tomorrow's podcast, 2014 NHL Redraft, 2016 Top 10 Albums, any other coronavirus-related sports news, and any other random sports news I have for you. I'll talk about it on the show. Hope you guys have a great day, everyone.